Well, I see we get this show on the road. I got either 2 minutes till 1, 1 to 1, or 3 to 1, depending on which clock I'm going off of. And I frankly don't know. I suspect they're all wrong. So it very well could be 1 o'clock. I apologize. The note went up. It said 2 o'clock. Again, that's one of those weird things with YouTube. When you schedule these, I'm not sure what time zone it thinks I'm in, but every single time I put one up, it says that I've got to say noon to get it at 1 o'clock. And sometimes I forget. So my mistake for not anticipating the other mistake. So Kevin in New York checked in, retired butcher boy. Happy Father's Day to all fathers. And today, of course, is Father's Day. Paul Van Santvord checked in also. FDSS made a motivational speech and then said that he wasn't good at them. But frankly, it's the best one I've seen today. Graham Mills, hey, kids. Boy Cat Sapiens, hello from Bossier City, Louisiana. Is that like Bossier? Is it the heavy French pronunciation? Tom Rogers, hello from Maryland. Mark Heil, good day, Steve. Good day, Mark. How are you, my friend? Travis Williamson, Esquire. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Make sense. Hello, Steve from Finland. Thank you for checking in, my fellow Finns. Duncan Campbell, hello, Steve from Melbourne, Australia, where I think it's probably tomorrow, maybe. Major Lee 76251. Hi, Steve. Hi, Major Lee. Northwest Rigging Specialist. Happy Father's Day. Thank you. Philippe the Boss. Hey, Steve, checking in from Boise, Idaho. Cool. And AK Finest. Greetings from Knoxville, Tennessee, where I believe they had a World's Fair at one point in time, which was an entire plot point of a Simpsons episode. Richard R. and from Minneapolis. John Smith, good morning. Heavy Hauler 617 checking in from Boston. G Keyman 565, hello. Steve Lehto and everyone else checking in, as I recall, from the Thumb of Michigan. Dr. Mystery Man, thank you for all your videos. Fort Lauderdale is in the house. Boy Cat Sapiens Bowser. Nico Pesala, good evening. 86F in Finland. Wow. 86F. I've got 78 according to the app on my phone, but the thermometer I've got outside my window says 82 or 83. So I think my app might be a little bit behind the times. Someone else checking in from Saskatoon. And I just realized now I'm way behind on this. It's catching up. Rural Rebel Tory. Joe Tejeda, greetings from Camarillo, California. Gravity Bong. Happy Father's Day. I think that's the first time I've said the phrase Gravity Bong in my life. Nero and Euro DMC. Happy Father's Day to all the fellows who are dads. May you all have God's great blessings, and may he keep you all on the righteous path. Braxton Nelson, hello from Valley, Alabama. Daniel Kester is checking in. Thank you, Daniel. It's always good to see your smiling face. William Christensen, good afternoon, checking in from Lincoln, Nebraska. I've driven past Lincoln, but never went into the town itself, but it looks great from a distance. I know that. It's either Mr. Satman or Mrs. Atman. Take your pick. Ken from OKC. I'm guessing it's the Mr. Satman. MVS, hello from Northwest Colorado. Howdy, everyone. Susan Johnson. Susan Johnson was the fake name that I used to use when I would ask for an extra pass someplace. It's complicated, but if they gave you 3 passes and I only had 2, I'd say, oh, I need one for Susan Johnson, just in case. Toys of your specialty, TOYS. Happy Father's Day from Santa Cruz, California. Mike, 4843. Hello, Steve. JC Griffith. Hi, Steve. From Father's Day from New Jersey Beach, where it's 90 plus degrees. John Smith. Hello from San Diego. Peter Mandex, greeting from Wine True. The lawns are dry and yellow already. You know, we got some rain yesterday and the day before, but prior to that, we hadn't had rain in so long. And so when it rains now, it's still, the ground is like a sponge, just soaks it all in. And it's still, you know, we need more, but at least the grass is green. So John Linton, hi from Las Vegas. And just scroll through a whole bunch. Duncan Campbell, it is indeed nearly 3 a.m. tomorrow. Cynic in Chief, what's the worst lawsuit you've ever seen that I was involved in or that I just simply know about? Because I've heard about a bunch of really, really silly lawsuits. Personally, I think the worst lawsuit I've ever seen is the one I did the 4-part series on, Welcome to Crazy Town, where someone sued me. But I've heard of a lot of crazy lawsuits, unfortunately, and some of them are so crazy you don't know if people did stuff on purpose just to make the news, you know. So, Paul Van Sanford, does Steve become a blue collar worker? Yes, this is my blue collar. The funny thing is, this is my canoeing shirt. So I have a T-shirt I wear that says CC Filson on it. This is actually a CC Filson a boating, fishing, canoeing type shirt. It's very, very comfortable in the hot weather. So got to get that. John Smith is not my real name. So says John Smith. But isn't that what John Smith would say? I would think so. Oh, Eric Jensen is crossing Lake Michigan on the high-speed ferry listening to Steve until the signal is gone. Wow. That's cool. I've crossed Lake Michigan on the old ferry, the one that burns coal back in the old days, but that was back in the old days. Hey, I got to mention a couple things before I forget. I got some really cool mail this week, and a gentleman sent me this really cool thing here. You open it up, and it's got this presentation case, and there is a pen right there, okay? So you go, what's the story behind the pen? Well, good thing I asked because he wrote me a letter. It says, Dear Steve, if you delivered the Free Press as a teen, I'm sure you would have known about the Boblo Island and Boblo boat system. It was an amusement park in the Detroit River. And there were two boats that went to the Boblo Island, one from Detroit, and I think one from the Canada side, the SS Columbia and the SS St. Clair. He said, I had the good fortune of working in the summer of 1969 on the Columbia, and I even carried a merchant marine card. And so he worked on the boat. Well, the boats got put aside because the island got sold, no longer works as an amusement park. But everybody who grew up in Detroit in the 60s and 70s remembers Boblo Island. A lot of schools would have field trips there. A lot of kids just go, there's a great place to go. It's an amusement park on a little island in the Detroit River. So he found out that they were going to scrap the boats. I'm going to summarize. They're going to scrap the boats, and he actually got permission to salvage the floorboards from the dance floor. And he took the floorboards and he spun them on a lathe and etched them so that he could turn them into commemorative pens. And so this right here, it says SS St. Clair Boblo boat, and it's got a little card of authenticity to indicate that wood did indeed come from the Boblo boat. So that's a prized possession I'll add to my collection. But unfortunately, a pen is not something you can identify that easily with your eyes on that back shelf. So there you go. Travis Williamson, Esquire, CC Filson shirt. This is it. And then I have a t-shirt that says it on the front, CC Filson. So D Wood, hi Steve, from where the thumb meets the rest of the mitten. Saginaw Bay City area, or are you talking about around the corner kind of like? So it's 296 Kelvin in Denver right now. And we know that because Kotaxista has checked in and done the math for us. Ed McDonald suggests it might be hot and humid in Shreveport, Louisiana. I am inclined to take his word for that. By the way, Madam Lestrange says we can breathe easy because the madam is here for Father's Day. Let's hear your best dad jokes. Dad jokes. You mean jokes in the style that a dad would tell, or jokes involving a dad? Those are two different things, you know. Hey, Steve, at what % chance of losing do you decide not to take a case? That's not really it. The weird thing about lemon law cases, I think they're so clear cut that I don't really ever do that kind of math. Somebody comes in, they got 4 repair attempts on a problem that's substantial. I think it's a good case. They're more binary in my case, meaning that they're either winners or losers, and I don't take losers. But I'm trying to think. So I can't think of any off the top of my head. Daniel Kester, is a Canadian robot lady in today? I'm not sure. I sent her a note earlier today and I forgot to follow up. Kotaxista, why do they put fences around cemeteries? Because people are dying to get in. Travis Williamson, Esquire, thank you. Filson is great. Yes, know them well. Great American company. They also have stores in a lot of neat places. I think I bought this in New York City, but I seem to recall they've got one in Detroit, or at least they used to. But I just like them. They're an outfitter, meaning they make a lot of stuff for camping, canoeing, hunting, hiking, that kind of stuff. And it's very, very high quality stuff. Eugene Groby, ever prevail in cases where the losing party refuses to pay? Oh, yeah. And I've had a few successfully evade payment by going into bankruptcy. I've chased people into bankruptcy. In fact, I got a bankruptcy court to order someone to pay me despite the bankruptcy. But I've also had somebody take a very large judgment into bankruptcy and it just evaporated. So But yeah, no. Usually what happens is if you get a judgment against a dealership, you just threaten to take their bond, and that gets ugly. And if it's against a manufacturer, they'll pay it. I do know an attorney who got a judgment against one of the big three, and they were not sure they're going to pay it or appeal it. And the time for the appeal ran, and they hadn't paid it. So my friend sent a sheriff's deputy over to the world headquarters and told them to start rounding up furniture. They got paid real fast. Timothy Doyle, longtime listener. Hi, Steve. Like the show. Thank you for checking in. And I get these notes from time to time, and I really enjoy it because I got a note from a guy yesterday. Just said, Steve, you know something? I've been listening to you for a year or two now, and I just want to shoot you a note because I just realized that you don't know who I am, and I only know you from YouTube, but I want to let you know I'm a viewer and I enjoy your stuff, and I still appreciate notes like that. Sometimes they come at just the right time too. Oh, Daniel Kester, are you properly hydrated? Yes, I brought water today. Oh boy. When you say take away a dealership bond, what is that bond? In Michigan, I believe it's $10,000. I'm not sure if that's the same amount or not, but they're required to post a bond. And basically what happens is they go to a bonding company or bonding agency and they say, we want you to put up guarantee a $10,000 bond on our behalf. And the bonding company will then make them pay some amount of money to secure that. And so that means that if the dealership even goes completely gone for a period of time, that bond is still there. I've actually had a dealership go out of business, and I got it, went after their bond. So G. Vokes is Brian Wilson is 79 today. Are you referring to Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys? If so, that's cool. I did not know that. I've seen the Beach Boys in concert, I'm guessing 10 or 15 times when I was younger, and I saw one tour where Brian toured with them, which is very unusual. He did not tour with them a lot after the mid-'60s. So absolute musical genius, and is one of those misunderstood people. Very complex person with a complex life, but he wrote a lot of great music and also performed on a lot of great music too. So Rob Curley says the video is much clearer today than when? Yesterday? I appreciate that. Thank you. Anytime the quality works, I'm happy because so often I come out here and people go, we can't hear you or something. Any thoughts on the Jeremy DeWitt case? Does not ring a bell. I apologize, Gabe. I do not know. Robert Woodliff, how many hours do you think you spend on YouTube each week? Where I'm on the tube or where I'm watching YouTube? Because I've got YouTube up on one of my monitors probably 12 hours a day. But a lot of times I'm simply monitoring my own channel or uploading stuff or playing with stuff or responding to comments. But I'm also working, doing other things at the same time. Have you ever lost a lemon law case? J.C. Griffith, are they always clear cut? Well, there's a variety of things that can happen in a lawsuit. You can win a lemon law case where they buy the vehicle back, pay your attorney fees, and that's everything you can hope for. Or sometimes they'll just pay you cash. Or you could theoretically get the case thrown out by accident. Like, your case gets thrown out, which means that your client gets nothing. Or you could lose at trial. And I've never had a lemon law case that went to trial where I lost. Okay. And I'm trying to think when the last time I had a pure lemon law case get thrown out. And I don't think I've had that happen in over 25 years, or if I have it, I'm not even sure. Because the cases that are borderline are the ones that aren't lemon law cases, that are used cars. I'll give you an example. Under Michigan's lemon law, a new car is defined very, very strangely in such a way that you can actually be the second owner of the car and still considered new, believe it or not. And I had a client who bought a former executive car from one of the big three. And you could buy those cars at a discount, and they were sold not as new, but they were sold with the manufacturer's new warranty on them, which qualifies them for lemon law coverage. And the manufacturer's attorney kept insisting that the car was used and didn't qualify under the lemon law. And he filed a bunch of motions, and he lost them all. And we were in my office the night before trial, preparing for trial. And the attorney called me and said, we'll buy the car back. And I said, where have you been all this time? The case settled. But it was one of those ones where I thought, well, maybe we're going to go to trial on this. So Daniel Kester, if you are called to be an expert witness, do you get paid? Yes. So fact witnesses who just saw something and get dragged into court, get paid sometimes a witness fee, which might be a couple bucks, but it's not much. But the other people who are brought in as expert witnesses get paid for their time. And I've seen doctors who charge like, $300 an hour and a minimum of 5 hours to go to court and pay them up front, or some large number. That number might even be low nowadays. But I remember hearing some very, very big numbers. So it's not me. 07. I bought a couple of those former executive cars. I was the first owner on each. Didn't have a lemon law case. So yeah, and different car companies. General Motors, for instance, has the PEP program, which is like the ones that are driven by employees, not necessarily executives, but they give company cars to people, and every 6 months they bring them back and they get another one. So they're 6 months old, but they get sold to the first civilian owner as a brand new car. So the lemon law will cover those in most cases in Michigan. So Dan DeClerc says engineering consultants get $500 an hour these days. Yeah, it depends on the expert, the expertise, and also just what they feel like charging. So, G Vogt, what qualifies one to be an expert witness? It's actually relatively low, the standard. It's that you have to have more knowledge in a field than the average person. So I used to jokingly tell my students at law school that most people in this room are an expert in something. There's no question I can be called as an expert to talk about metal detectors. I could also be called as an expert to talk about writing books. I've written 12 books, so I can get up there and talk about it. And so it's simply somebody with more knowledge than the average person on something that will help aid the jury in its understanding of something. The problem with experts is you hire one, I hire one, and they completely disagree with each other. And that happens all the time. One expert will get up and go, no. That guy's out of his mind. The other expert gets something. They're insane. So. Travis Williamson, Esquire. I had a neurosurgeon who charged $1,500 an hour in a case, and he probably had a minimum charge, like he might even say like that's by the half day, so I can drive to court and drive back. J. Paul, can a hostile witness plead the fifth, or do they have to answer the questions? Well, you can only plead the fifth if it's actually going to incriminate you. Otherwise, you're not testifying against yourself. But if you refuse to answer questions, the judge will then have to make a decision, because they can't break out a cattle prod to make you answer questions. So the question then becomes, what can a judge do to convince you to testify? And a judge can hold you in contempt, which means that the judge can possibly throw you in jail for a little while. The question is how long and so on. So, you don't see that often, but you hear about it from time to time, especially in a case where there's some scary defendants. They don't want to testify against them. So, Bell Chris, glad to catch a live stream. Thanks for interesting videos. Well, thank you for checking in, my friend. Michael Doherty, and he plans to take the Viper out for a driving video in the near future. Soon. Wild Bill 57. Years ago, a brother was hired as an expert witness. Civil engineer, made 3 trips, $900 a day plus expenses. Yeah, so it depends on the expertise in that, The weird part is I've actually seen fact witnesses, like treating doctors, who said, I don't care. If you're going to ask me my opinion on the stand, I'm an expert witness. You're going to pay me as such. And what are you going to do? They want payment, or you could drag them into court as a fact witness, and they're not happy to be up there. Terry Alexander, what is the pay on jury duty? $20 a day? Strange and backwards. Yeah, no, it's not worth it for the money. If you enjoy jury duty, it's because you like getting out of the house and meeting strangers. Alex Rosenbaum, Steve, in the movie My Cousin Vinny, would the girlfriend really have been allowed to testify as an expert? That's a good question. Quite possibly. And I say quite possibly because I don't recall. I remember her saying what her credentials were, that she had worked on cars and what kind of work she'd done on cars. But you'll recall at one point in the discussion, the prosecutor, I believe, conceded and said, fine, let her be an expert. And so if the other side agrees to it, then all bets are off. But in real life, quite possibly no, because it's so easy to say, something, There are qualifications to be a mechanic. Most states license mechanics. So you get a certified mechanic or a certified master mechanic. And when I have cases of my own, I have a guy who's a certified master mechanic, and I bring him in, and you can't argue with his expertise. Now, they can bring a certified master mechanic in also, but the point is that bar then gets kind of high. So Kevin Kaczynski, I plead a fifth. Eugene Groby, jury duty in Minnesota is $10. $10. Mark Dayton had it lowered when he occupied the governor's chair. They felt they were paying the jurors too much. Robert Schneer, sorry, should I bring an attorney with me when I buy a car at a dealership? You know, that's probably going a little bit too far, although I've gone car shopping with people before, and it's always funny when I hear them, the salespeople say something really crazy. But you do have to read everything you sign and pay a special attention to the things like the Truth in Lending Act disclosures on the loan document and the purchase agreement to see if you're signing any crazy like arbitration agreements or to pay for the fabric protection, that kind of stuff. J.W. Stalker, 1979. Good morning or afternoon, Steve, from the beautiful Teton Mountains of eastern Idaho. Never been there. Sounds great. Vernon Turner says he's an expert at watching YouTube videos. So am I. Florida's Huckleberry is checking in from Minnesota. Oh, boy. MW Duck says, I don't know whether Alabama allows surprise expert witnesses, but my cousin Vinny was full of them. Here's the thing. For movies, we often do things like that for drama, But in real life, generally speaking, you have to file a witness list long before a trial takes place. So you know who your opponent's witnesses are, and they know who your witnesses are. But where it falls apart is if somebody testifies to something that's really, really out in left field, you can sometimes bring in a witness on rebuttal to explain. I never anticipated we were going to start talking about voodoo or something, so we got to bring in a witch doctor or something. I don't know. And so the idea that you can bring in somebody on rebuttal might get you there. But in the case of my cousin Vinny, there's a bunch of things that were unrealistic about the movie. And so he would have seen the photographs, for instance, long, long before the trial. But again, that's just for, dramatic purposes. So Greatland Guardians checking in from Alaska. D. Wood, in a courtroom, if the judge addresses you, should you always refer to them as Your Honor? Yes, you should. Although if it's a gentleman judge, you can say yes, sir. Or if it's a female judge, you can say yes, ma'am. But Your Honor is generally something you want to pepper in there quite a bit. But be careful addressing in any other way. It sounds less formal. Yeah. What? You talking to me? Hang on, dude. We'll get to you in a second. Yeah. Avoid the real casual talk. Matthias checking in from Berlin. Thank you, my friend. Michael Germain's checking in from Red Deer, Alberta, land of the bad paralegal. Well, the paralegal was from another city, I thought. And the victim moved to Red Deer after finding out he wasn't divorced. So apparently, or did he move? No. He moved from Red Deer to someplace else. I'm sorry. I got my Canadian towns mixed up. So, yeah, Michael Dougherty, the Three Stooges, Judgy Wudgy. Disorder in the court. Kevin in New York. Steve, you said you were doing something with Nostalgic Auto and you would show us a video about it. What was it? Here's the deal. I went down with Mark to pick up his Dodge Challenger drag pack. That car right there will do a sub-8 quarter mile from the factory. But we spent so much time hanging out at the place these cars were built that when we got back to a shop, we didn't have time to shoot the video. So we'll shoot the video shortly, and I'll put it up. But that is a cool car. You got to hear that thing run. The exhaust note is a thing of beauty and loud. Christopher Ritchie, can you explain pro bono? Pro bono work is work lawyers do. They don't charge their clients anything. They're doing it as a public service or for the community or for a good cause. And there are law firms out there that do a lot of it. And then most attorneys do some from time to time, just, to help people out. But it's quite often cases that people can't afford to bring, but attorneys think they're important and that kind of thing. So Gadabout says you have three subjects you have strong feelings about. One is civil asset forfeiture. Two is government officials doing crimes. Three is sovereign citizens and driving licenses. Could you add one more? Fake science of excited delirium. I'm not sure what that is. It's hard for me to get fired up about it if I don't know what it is. Matthias, why does a rebel colony still address their judges as your honor? Isn't that kind of an English old-fashioned thing? Not really. It's just a sign of respect. The honorable. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a monarchical thing. Is that a word, monarchical? Coming from the root monarch? Yeah, I mean, a lot of our legal system has its roots in the common law from England. So, everything from the way the courtrooms are set up. I mean, we got rid of the wigs. We got rid of the people in court wearing robes. Now it's just the judge. So. Mr. Phil, 1969, when you do pro bono work, is that time tax deductible as charity? It probably is. I've done some. I never deducted it. Never even thought about it. Tom is enjoying his Father's Day, watching the U.S. Open and listening to what I'm doing here. I bet I'm making more noise in the gallery at the U.S. Open. Balu, what is the law on giving your name and ID in the U.S. of A? In America, there are 50 states, and the state laws vary wildly. And there are some states that have laws saying that you must identify yourself to law enforcement if they ask under certain circumstances. Other states don't have that. And the question then is, if you don't have the ID on you, but you identify yourself to them, then you should be okay. There's no law that I'm aware of anywhere that says you're required to carry ID on you at all times. But you may have to identify yourself depending on the state you are in. Gadabout says, thank you, Steve. Greetings from Bulgaria. Well, thank you for checking in from Bulgaria. I like hearing from faraway places. 99 says, there's a judge I just call Judge because I can't stand him, so there's no Your Honor. Judge is also acceptable. Judge is also acceptable. I just never liked Judge as much, just because to me it does sound. The nuance you're getting at is real. Okay, so but I've always tried really, really hard. If I don't like a judge, I don't want them to know it until later. I've seen judges get angry at litigants or attorneys, and you're thinking that can't help their case any. And so my job in court is not to get involved in a little thing with the judge. My job is to go in there and get the job done and get out. So Travis Williamson, Esquire, says feudal practice in England, barons and et cetera were referred to as Your Honor. Yeah, no, a lot of these titles are weird. Like the idea of putting Esquire after the name of an attorney. An Esquire was a certain post in society back then. And it's one of those things that got carried over. I've never used the ESQ after my name, but I know attorneys who do. And, I've also seen attorneys put JD after their name. It's like, well, if you're an attorney, you've got a JD. But I guess. Mindbend, if you was a judge, would I be way out of line if instead of Your Honor, I said, okay, Steve? It'd be even better if it's something like, calm down, Steve. Cool it, Steve. Yeah, that would go over real well. What's sad is I've been in front of judges who I was friends with, and we have to pretend we don't know each other. So it works both ways. And I've been in front of a judge I knew, and like he looks at me, little look of recognition, and okay, Mr. Lehto, fish guy, what's it called? The lawyer only gets paid if you win. That'd be a contingency arrangement. Contingency. Your payment is contingent upon a successful outcome. District 1, what would be the most over-the-top way to address the judge more than your honor? Oh, you mean if you wanted to really dress it up? You'd say like your honorable judgeness. No, your honor is pretty much it. John Santabria checking in from the COVID-free state of Florida. I'm pretty sure sunshine is the best disinfectant, and that explains that, right? Fortis Huckleberry, Minnesota is not a stop and ID state. Police still lied to me. I was not carrying ID at the same time, or at this last time. Yeah, unfortunately, police officers occasionally, as a interrogation and discovery technique, will mislead you. Oh. Imerton Bob, do you have an opinion on how end user license agreements could be improved? Oh, they could be shortened by about 1 million words. Maybe hacked down to 10 pages of fine print. Now, generally speaking, the only thing I can think of really that would be practical is to simply make them available so people can review them before they're in the process of signing up to buy something. And I know in many cases they are, but the problem is nobody reads them. So I think what you may have to do is come up with some kind of Truth in Lending Act type of disclosures and have them put certain things up front, like arbitration agreements or venue choice agreements or things of that nature, and put those up front so people don't have to wade through 35 pages of nonsense just to find it. Matthias, it is funny, at a congressional hearing, you often see the name tags, the honorable. Yeah, that's also used on some politicians. And some people would suggest that is an oxymoron to have an honorable politician. But Travis Williamson, Esquire, when you hear this, crawl under council table with all due respect, Your Honor. Oh, boy. I've seen cases before where the judge and one or both attorneys had gotten to the point where they made each other's skin crawl. And the scary part is that as an attorney, there are times when you have to object to preserve something. And I've seen a judge in a situation say, stop objecting to somebody. The other attorney knows what's coming, so they make an objectionable question. Got to make the objection. M-Pack Trader. What do you think of attorneys referring themselves as doctor or correcting people to call them doctor? I understand they have a Juris Doctor, but how common is it? I've never known any attorney who called himself doctor. Never. I actually knew a doctor who became an attorney, but a Juris Doctor, most attorneys do not consider themselves to be doctor. I've known people who jokingly called me Dr. Lehto, but that's a joke. I've never had anybody seriously call me that. And I would never correct anybody who didn't call me doctor because I would not use the name. So. Brianna CC, do you believe in homicide cases with no body or crime scene? Those are difficult. There have been a few, and you know something? The idea that you can convict somebody beyond a reasonable doubt of committing a homicide when they don't have the body or a crime scene, it gets real tough. And you're always wondering if somebody's going to come show up one day and go, hey, everybody, I'm back. I got lost. Oh, boy. Mindbend, would you use Professor Lehto? I never introduced myself as that to anybody, but I have people who call me that who are former students. And I accept that because professor is a title that once you have it, it's pretty much accepted. You can use it for the rest of your life, kind of like judge, or if you were a colonel in the war between the states, or even a lower ranking officer, you just call yourself colonel. And people who call me professor, I don't correct them on that because I know they're referring to the fact that I used to teach. So, Jonathan Bailey, why do bees have sticky hair? Because they use a honeycomb. J. Paul, if you are suing a repair shop and you are a master mechanic, can you be your own expert witness? In theory, you could be, but the problem is that you are obviously biased. And so most lawyers would tell you that we should bring in someone else to be the expert because the jury's going to look at you and go, of course you think that. It's you suing the other guy. So bring in another person because arguably you could, but it wouldn't be worth it, I don't think. Fortis Huckleberry, Gideon versus Wainwright. That's the case where the Supreme Court said that you are entitled to actually have counsel. And if it can't be, you can't afford it, one will be appointed for you. They actually made a movie out of that. I believe with Jimmy Stewart playing Gideon. But that's a while back. So Steve says, people used to call me Steve Areno. Was it R-E-N-O or R-I-N-O, like Italian or something? Oh. Tom, isn't anybody you hire as an expert witness biased? Yes, but they're not biased as much as you are. Yeah, and Michael Doherty says the mechanic would have a fool for a customer then. It's a twist on the attorney representing himself. Fortis Huckleberry is gasoline over $3 in Michigan yet. $3 a gallon. I saw it yesterday at 3.05, but yes, it's been hovering around $3 for a little while. Tommy, do you think SCOTUS will overturn Kelo? I doubt it. I wish they would. I think it's a dumb case, but Kelo is the case about the woman who had that little house that somebody decided was in the way of a development, and they wanted to take it from her and condemn it, forced her to give it up. And she took it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yeah, no, they're allowed to do that. And then they took it, they knocked it down and never did the development. It's just a waste. Razor 2048, why are there no laws against patent trolls? Well, there's a whole system of laws in place. It's just the patent trolls are using them to their advantage. What they would need to do is make the process a little faster and a little fairer on determining whether or not somebody's actually abusing a patent. So, G Keyman 565 says he saw gas at 288 in the thumb yesterday. Okay. Fish guy, I'm out of line. Steve's out of line. This whole chat room is out of line. Oh, Cotaxista. Developers want to knock my place down, waiting for the right price. Blah, 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 blah. Says, would you please explain the story of the number 6 coffee cup? I mentioned this last week. It was sent in by somebody who worked at the Cotton Owens garage. And Cotton Owens was a race car builder back in the good old days of NASCAR. And like Buddy Baker, for instance, drove a number 6. So that's a Cotton Owens garage coffee mug. Got it added about a week and a half ago. Colorado B guy. Hey, Steve, how are the water levels this year? Any trips coming up? Right now, the water levels are too low. They are way low, way low. But I'd like to take the canoe out this year. Did not take it out last year, but I'll try to take it out this year. I'm working on that a little bit in the background right now. Hellcat with a K, what's the best way to lobby your state representatives to get laws changed? Well, You can contact them. You can write to them. You could agitate. You could ask people to email them. You could call them. But generally speaking, one or two people calling and complaining, they get that all day long. You got to do more and get some actual numbers behind you. Popularize something, get the word out about it. Jordan also brought those knives or cigars in the maple leaf mug. Those are Rapala knives. They're knives from Finland. So. Fish guy, have you ever heard of someone suing themselves? I have not, but I do believe there's a possibility of a situation where someone could be suing their own insurance company. And in some states, that might be postured as you suing yourself. It's the only thing I can think of. Blah, blah, blah. Have you been affected by the Peloton hack? No. The Peloton hack they're talking about now, apparently if someone gets access to your Peloton machine, they can hack into it and get stuff from it. Well, my Peloton machine's in my house, so no one has access to it but me. But presumably someone could hack into a Peloton at a gym and do something with it there and get something from the users. I'm not even sure how it works. But like I said, no one's got access to my machine, so. Mash and Totters, what if I want to sue my wife? Yeah, it's called a divorce. Carl's Corner, you can sue yourself. Creedence Clearwater Revival did. Yes and no. But no, it's a funny story. John Fogerty was the primary songwriter of Creedence Clearwater Revival. And he had problems with the record company that they were with. And so later he went solo and went to another record company. And at the second record company where he's performing as a solo artist, he put out some solo music. And the people who owned the rights to his first catalog stuff at the first record company sued him, claiming he was plagiarizing himself. And so he had to defend that and say, I'm not plagiarizing myself. This is just my style, and my songs all have a certain feel to them. And he won, by the way. And interestingly enough, he actually it had to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in that case, I believe the Supreme Court said the way the copyright laws are written, even though he'd been sued, because he won, the other side had to pay him. And a lot of statutes that are on the books say that if you sue somebody and you win, they got to pay you. It does not say if you sue them and lose, you got to pay them. And so it was an unusual outcome there. But yeah, he was in essence sued for plagiarizing himself. So Ed Lowe, I'm still interested in the naval officer sword behind you. Were you in the U.S. Coast Guard? No, two different things. This was sent in to me by a guy. It's not on camera, is it? Is it on camera? I just realized I got the thing covered up. Oh, it is. Never mind. Whoa. Sorry. I didn't mean to yell. U.S. Coast Guard plaque was sent in by a viewer who was in the U.S. Coast Guard. And the naval officer sword was donated to the set by descendants of the man who carried that in World War I, who was an officer and a medical doctor in the U.S. Navy. William Whippich, where's the best place to see a turbine car? Where in the country are you? If you're in America, you can find one because there are 9 of them, and they're all in the U.S. But like, for instance, there's one on display at the Smithsonian, which may or may not be on display, but it's in their collection. There's one the Detroit Historical Museum's got, may or may not be on display. The Peterson Museum had one lent to them by the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles. St. Louis Museum of Transportation's got one, and theirs is often on display. Chrysler's got one, which may or may not be on display anywhere because their archives are closed or their museum is closed. But they're out there. It depends on where you are, like I said, in the country. 43 influences Gilmore. The Gilmores had the Detroit Historical Museum turbine car on display. I'm not sure they still have it, but if they still have it, yeah. Tom's has talked to Jay. Jay Leno's got one, yeah. Jeff Clayton, what's the best lawyer movie of all time? Best actor who played a lawyer? always tell people I go with Anatomy of a Murder. It's an older black and white film, but it's fabulous. And the courtroom scenes are wonderful. And the guy who wrote the novel is based on was a prosecutor and then a judge on the Michigan Supreme Court. And he was, he knew his stuff, and he wrote it very, very accurately. So I think it's a great movie, Anatomy of a Murder. So Ed Lowe, I was a naval flight surgeon, so my sword will go to my granddaughter. Well, yeah, and I appreciate that, although I've got quite a few swords. Someone actually sent me a note and said, Steve, did I see a sword on your set? And I said, yeah, you saw 3 if you look closely, because there's one right there, and one over there. So Travis Williamson, Esquire, the old man down the road was supposed to be plagiarized from Run Through the Jungle. Yeah, and I like Creedence Clearwater Revival, and I like John Fogerty, but those songs do sound a lot alike. But I think most people are going to say, look, some guy who writes a couple songs sound alike, he ain't stealing anything, So, Mark Sparks, Double Jeopardy is great too. The Fuse Man, he didn't get paid in Anatomy, did he? Yeah, the lawyer got stiffed. It's not taking anything away from the movie. Trust me. That it's such an end. It's such a minor little footnote that the lawyer doesn't get paid. So, Yoker Belian, this is okay. So you're a lawyer. I thought you were a ninja. I make too much noise to be a ninja. Sean Huntley, did you ever see the Harrah's car collection in Reno before it got butchered? No. But that is where one of the turbine cars was for a few years, but it got sold to Tom Monahan, who sold it to Frank Klepps, who left it to his son, who then sold theirs to the Stalls Museum in New Baltimore, Michigan, which is the one that I got to drive about a month and a half ago. So if you're in Michigan, there's a place you can see at the Stalls Museum. So Stephen Baines, Steve is a caretaker of 3 swords. That's the best way to put it. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a firm believer that something like that sword, that's a Civil War sword, and whether it got carried in battle, we don't know. It's dated 1865. And that sword was around, obviously, almost 100 years before I came along. And then it was another 50 years before I actually acquired it. And it will be here long after I'm gone. So to say that I own that sword, I don't even like to say that. I'm merely its caretaker at this point in time. Mindbend, how many of the turbines are actually running? Well, Chrysler's both run. The Stalls runs. Jay Leno's runs. And the St. Louis Museum runs. So I believe there's 5 that run of the 9 that are out there. Sean L. Drake, my favorite prop you have is the Charger Daytona. Right there. I like that one a lot too. I've driven the car that's based on, by the way. Just like to throw that in there once in a while. Make sure everyone knows that. Colorado B Guy, are you doing the Mackinac Bridge Walk this year? If they do the Bridge Walk, which I'm not sure if they've officially announced one way or the other, but if they do, I will. They canceled it last year. So... Yoker Belian, how did you acquire those swords? Did you serve? No, I did not. That sword over there is 150 years old. It's quite old. This one here is also quite old. So no. Where is that car now? Graham Mills, referring to Bobby Isaac's Charger. Bobby Isaac's Daytona is owned by a gentleman named Tim Wellborn. And Tim Wellborn is a Mopar guy whose collection is amazing. And it's down in Alabama. And if you go to Alabama, you can find the Wellborn Museum. It's a private museum. And he's got that car in there along with, I lost track of how many Hemi Mopar cars he's got there. He's got Superbirds, Daytonas, and all kinds of stuff. And he's just fascinated with that slice of history. And I've talked to him before. And he told me that in 1969 at Talladega, where that car debuted, He was in the stands with his father watching that race, and he saw that race. And Bobby came in, I think, third, okay? And he was in love with that car. And years later, he had the opportunity to acquire it and restore it, and there it is. So there you go. Project design suggests that the Hemi might be a robust motor. Oh, yeah, you have no idea. Miguel Soria loves seeing your stories on VinWiki. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think I'm going to have one more up tomorrow, by the way. I got to tell you something. Ed Bolian, who's the host of VinWiki, it's his channel, is a really, really nice guy. He's just a heck of a nice guy. I went down to Atlanta and shot a bunch of videos with him back in February. And he goes, I'm going to scatter these out every couple of weeks. We'll put up another one for you. And he goes, by the way, it's standard practice for me. If I have a guest on and we shoot a video, before it goes up, because I'll send you a link, you can watch it and you can let me know, any thoughts. Should I edit this or fix this or throw something in here? Whatever we can do. And that's a dangerous thing to do. When I was writing for magazines, I actually had people tell me, like, hey, before it publishes, can I read it? And I'd send it to them and they'd send it back. Well, I don't like this. I don't like, and you're like, And so it's a scary concept. So he sent me a link this morning and said, Steve, here's the rough of the video that we think we're going to put up tomorrow about you and Jay Leno's turbine car. So I watched it. I said, great. I sent it back, said, let me know when it goes up. So I believe it's going up tomorrow. So there you go. AE1TP A92GW Tom says, can you talk about your radio days? Cheers from Bahrain. I could, but it would take some time. I can summarize it for you. I went to broadcasting school in Detroit in 1981. 1982, I moved to Bad Axe, Michigan, up on the thumb of Michigan. And I was a disc jockey at a country radio station called WLEW for about a year and a half, 2 years. I then moved to Saginaw. I worked at WKNX Saginaw, which is an oldies station. I worked there for a couple of years. Later on, I moved down to Flint, worked at WTRX Flint at an oldies station for a while. And then somewhere along there, I decided to go back to school. Went back to college, was working on that. At the same time, I went to work at CK105 in Flint, which is a top 40 rock and roll type station on the FM. Pretty cool station. Then I went to law school. When I came back from law school, I then was a talk show host on WOW FM in Detroit and WFDF in Flint. And then from there, I started doing podcasts. So I've done some other radio stuff as well, but I was a disc jockey before law school and a talk show host after law school for the most part. Immortan Bob said, burned an entire afternoon on VinWiki videos. It'll do that. There's channels out there that'll do that. Curtis Napier, I love to listen to your stories. Well, thank you. Gary Weisenberger, did you go to Specs Howard? Yes, I did. And the sad part is that it appears that Specs Howard is going away, the business. Specs Howard is named after a guy named Specs Howard, who was the founder of the school like over 50 years ago, I believe. And he was a disc jockey in Ohio and I think Detroit. And he started a school for broadcasting. And I went there in 1981. A lot of people went there. I mean, in Detroit, it's about half the voices you heard in the 70s and 80s were Specs Howard graduates. But apparently, number one, Dick Kernan passed away. Anybody who knows that school knows who Dick Kernan was. Dick Kernan was not the owner of the school, Specs was, but he was one of those guys who's been there a million years. And he was like one of the foundations of that school. He passed away a little while ago. And also with COVID and all this other stuff coming along, the school's been shut down for a little while. I think they're trying to revive certain parts of it, but it doesn't look like it's come back the way it was, which is very sad because it has such a history in Detroit and southeastern Michigan. Tommy, what legal challenges do you foresee with autonomous cars? I did a video, and I think I even wrote about it for Jalopnik. I don't remember. I specifically am convinced that everyone's going to be suing everyone. in that I'm driving an autonomous car and I hit you in your autonomous car, and we're both gravely injured, okay? It ain't my car's fault. It's your car's fault. You're going to say it ain't your fault. It's my car's fault. I'm going to say it might even be your fault because maybe you weren't letting it drive itself properly. And of course, you're going to say the same thing about me. And then, of course, the car maker might try, it depends on who created the AI, but it basically adds a level of complexity, which I think is going to add a level of litigation. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. They might wind up having to create some laws to protect it, some kind of immunity or something. We'll see. J. Paul, I apologize. I do not know how many years for something to become public domain because it hinges sometimes on, I believe, the life of the author or the composer. But I've not looked at that in a long time, so sorry about that. Daniel Kester just noticed him over 200,000 subscribers. Happened a week or two back, but yeah, in fact, right now, as of this exact moment in time, I'm at 206,278 subscribers. So there you go. Mark Guy Kitos from Vancouver, BC. Thank you. Karen Ashley says the computers decide who will die, dependent on the value of the passenger. And that's, of course, assuming the computers have got perfect knowledge because, how do they know who's in the other car and so on? Frederick Heron says, I saw a 426 Hemi on Marketplace in Central Ohio a couple months ago for $17,000. I mean, just the motor, just a Hemi? But yeah. 426 Hemis. The fact that Chrysler sold those to the public just so they'd be legal to race, it's crazy. They were selling those things at a loss. But David N., the same thing will happen with drone delivery. Lots of lawsuits. I'm real curious. I've seen the ads on TV, which, by the way, the dumbest thing ever was bringing back the Noid for pizza commercials. But suppose a thing comes to your house to deliver a pizza. Like, I punch in a code and the door opens up and take the pizza out. I mean, I'm sure it'll happen. We'll see. Mindbend, can you tell who thumbs up and thumbs downs? No. And frankly, I don't care. Whenever somebody gives me a thumbs down, it's interaction. This is the greatest thing ever. YouTube measures how many people watch a video, how long they watch a video for, and if they interact with the video in any way. Do they click a like on it? Do they read the comments? Do they type a comment? And so if you give me a thumbs down, it's better for me than if you had just simply clicked and left. So I'm not going to stop anybody from interacting with one of my videos. Leo the Nomad, what is the most legally accurate movie you've seen, especially from courtroom procedural aspect? I believe that's close enough to the question as asked earlier that I think it's Anatomy of a Murder. It's very, very good on all of that stuff. It is. It really is. Most movies and TV shows can't do the courtroom stuff that accurately because it's too boring. It's very, very boring. I'm convinced that many people who serve jury duty are disappointed when they discover how boring courtrooms really are. But when you're not sitting around waiting, you're watching lawyers do stuff very, very slowly. So, Ed Lowe loved the concept of the Noid. Here's the problem with the Noid from my viewpoint, okay? The Noid focuses on the idea that pizzas get smashed in delivery. So do I want to order a pizza from a company who, in my mind, is somehow tied with the idea of a smashed pizza? I think they're emphasizing the wrong part of the pizza industry. If I want pizza, I want it to taste good. I want it to be hot and fresh. And I'd like to get it shortly after I order it. And the idea that, but pizzas get smashed all the time, so order ours. What? I just find them actually focusing on the wrong thing. But pizza, Fortis. Sean Huntley, I want to sit in the courtroom of a judge whose last name is Judge, so they can say, all rise, honorable Judge. Oh, I was advocating that somebody, I had a friend in the early days of the internet, and I said, you should buy dot.com so you can say you've got .com. But I think somebody grabbed it pretty quickly. So it wasn't that great of an idea. Funky Fudge, 1-1. What's the difference between a jury and a grand jury? A jury in the legal setting is the group of people who decide your guilt or innocence, or how much money you get or don't get. And a grand jury, they shouldn't even call it that because it confuses people. But a grand jury is when the prosecutor or whoever's empowered to do this calls together a group of citizens, puts them in a room, swears them all to do their duty, and then says, we're going to start investigating some sort of crime. And you drag witnesses in and have them testify before the grand jury. After you get enough witnesses and testimony in, you then ask the grand jury to vote. Do you think there's enough evidence here to indict somebody for a crime? And if so, who do we indict? And the grand jury then can issue indictments. So I've seen people mistakenly write things. They say, well, the grand jury didn't convict anybody. Well, grand juries don't convict anybody. Grand juries indict people or don't indict people. So grand jury is more of an investigative tool. You often hear about it at the federal level, especially when it's involving a large crime ring or a big criminal enterprise, and they know something's going on, but they got to get to the bottom of it because a grand jury can issue subpoenas, and if people won't testify in front of the grand jury, they can try to take the fifth, but if they're not allowed to do that, bad things happen. If they do take the fifth, bad things can also happen, and grand juries will often hold a bunch of hearings and then start throwing down indictments, and so that's what a grand jury does. Fred Blower says, I turned 50 on May 1st. Congratulations. You'll turn 51 next May 1st. Woohoo from Texas. Harris in Michigan, passing through. Do you ever meet subscribers? I've met subscribers before who've shown up at a Cars and Coffee that I go to from time to time. There's a Cars and Coffee Saturday mornings in Pasteiners on Woodward Avenue, north of 14 Mile Road. I have not been there in a month or two, though. I also go to the Woodward Dream Cruise every August. And so if it's not raining, I'll bring my Viper. If it is raining, I'll bring something else. But I'll be there this August as well. But it just depends on what's going on and where we are and so on. Peter Mandix, isn't pizza a borderline food product? Well, pizza is genius because they managed to make them so quickly and so cheaply that it took decades before people realized, wait, we can just give two away for the price of one and still make money. And it doesn't require much thought, either to make it, deliver it, or to eat it, or to order it. So it's a fascinating concept. South Bay Technology Gurus, are you getting a Bronco? No, I'm not. I like them though. I think they look cool, but I'm not in the market right now for just another brand new car. G. Vogt, didn't a lawyer once say he could get a ham sandwich indicted by a grand jury? I believe, yeah. I'm not going to misquote this because I know it's somebody famous. I think it was a Supreme Court justice, because the standard for indictment means that you've got enough evidence to show that a crime may have been committed and it was probably committed by this person. The standard is really low. It's really low. But generally speaking, they don't like to issue indictments that are that weak because then it makes them look really, really bad when they fall apart at trial, which does happen. Fred Hill, is there any state that has an RV lemon law? I believe California has one. I'm not sure how it's worded, though, in terms of what parts of the vehicle count or whether it's all of the vehicle. I don't know. I believe there might be one or two others. It's kind of like boat lemon laws. There really ought to be a boat lemon law in all 50 states, but there's not. And so, one of those things. Paul Van Sanford, 123, now seems to go the good way, planning on a Finland trip. I'm not sure if you're asking if I'm planning on going on a Finland trip. I'd like to go to Finland, and I've got friends in America who are from Finland. I've also got friends on the internet who are in Finland. And I'm going to need to talk to some people that I trust to find out how reasonable it is for me to travel to Finland if I speak no Finnish. I understand a lot of Finns speak English, okay? But that's kind of like saying, well, you can go to France because a lot of people in France speak English. Don't count on that. They will not welcome you with open arms and say, oh, you don't speak French? Come on in. No. I understand Finns are different, but I'm paranoid about going someplace where I don't speak the language. I can't understand the signs. I can't, announcements, So I'd love to go, but I just haven't lined that one up yet. Robert Hart, you should go on a cruise. Stockholm, Estonia, St. Petersburg, Helsinki. That's an interesting concept. I've been on cruises before, just not in Europe. I may want to check that one out. Bob Summers, why no federal lemon law? Well, there's lemon laws in all 50 states, so they might not have thought it was necessary to have one. There's the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, which some people call the federal lemon law, but it applies to all consumer products that come with warranties, not just automobiles. But it's got some nuances that make it different from, did I hit that? And it makes it different from the state lemon law. Robert Hart says, I did that cruise. Co-taxista, French to Americans. Yes, I speak English, but not to you. I was in France with somebody who spoke very good French. We sat down in a restaurant and she asked for menus in French. And the waiter came by and handed us 2 American, menus. I was just rude to us the whole time. Now, don't tell me they're rude to everybody. They were ruder to us because they're like, oh, these Americans are in here trying to spend their money and eat our food. So, Mike D, I've been to Finland twice and have had no problem not knowing Finnish. Really? Well, maybe there's hope. Oh, boy. Google Translate, FDSS. I'm not sure. And my Finns in the audience will understand this. You can look up Finnish lyrics to a song and cut and paste them into Google Translate, and the English, it's not correct. It's crazy. It's the Finnish language is so unusual that even Google Translate gets confused by it. So, Mark K, are you researching or writing any new books? Right now, what I'm working on is getting the Timothy Masters book back into print. So that'll come out in the fall. But that's not a new book, but it's been out of print. It'll feel like one. So, Nico Pasla, there's hope. You just have to believe. I believe. I just don't speak Finnish. That's all. 90 knots. My neighbors in Seattle were Finnish. Very nice, and always had their Finnish flag out. Jeff Clayton, are the automakers putting up more or less lemon cars nowadays? Why? ? Thanks. It's interesting. The numbers don't really change all that much, but the problems I see seem to change. And I've been seeing a lot of problems lately with electronic issues and computer issues. And I think that the cars have gotten complicated to the point now where if there's a problem that's not painfully obvious, the dealerships have a hard time tracking it down and fixing it at the dealer level. It's just, I think it's a symptom of how complex the cars are. So, VS, happy Father's Day. I'm a first-time father. Any legal advice? I'm not sure you need a legal advice. If you're a recent first-time father, get the rest when you can. It's not me 07. You'll fit right in this. Maybe lighten the hair a bit before the trip. Could be. Hansi Skewer, do you own a Prius? No, I do not. I own 2 Ford Explorers and a Viper. Don't you call that? Donald Whittemore, can anyone be a lawyer? Do you need some special traits? It takes a lot of training. You got to go through the equivalent of 7 years of school, an undergraduate and then graduate school. So I would assume you need to know how to study and read books and learn. But it helps if you can think without getting upset. And this is going to be one of those things that I'm not sure if I can explain it properly, but we've all known those people who cannot discuss something without getting bent out of shape. And you should be able to discuss anything dispassionately, meaning that you can discuss a topic without getting upset. And go get upset later, but you should be able to discuss it for a moment without getting upset. And I mean, I know people on a daily basis that I know who can't do that. They would make horrible lawyers because, you know, they couldn't control themselves in front of a judge, in front of a jury, in front of their clients, you know, and you've got to be able to sit there with a blank expression on your face, if necessary, and go, oh, okay, cool, you know. Robert Hodgins is 30 plus computers in a modern car. I wouldn't be surprised. Liberty for us all, 25-year practicing lawyer studying for the July bar exam. Watching for break. Which state are you studying for? I've been practicing law for 30 years now, 30 years. And here's the deal, okay? I thought about taking the bar in another state, in a state that had no reciprocity. So I was going to have to study. So I ordered the bar exam books. I got the books out. I spent one day studying. And I got to the question where it goes, or the point where it goes, to determine child custody when it's disputed, there's like 28 factors. Here they are. And I look at this list of 28 factors and I'm thinking to myself, I got to memorize 28 factors on the off chance that one question out of 200 addresses this. And I got a headache thinking about it. So I put the books away, and about a week later I threw them away. So my heart goes out to you. Liberty for us all, Florida. There you go. I got friends in Florida who are attorneys. And that's one of the states without reciprocity. And so you I feel your pain. Good luck, my friend. Hang in there. Let me know how it goes when you take the bar. Oh, boy. Four-door ZL1 says, Steve, get rid of the Viper and join us in the LSX world, something that actually works. My Viper actually works. Sam Sen, good you didn't go to med school. Oh my, I know people who did. I got a couple of very good friends of mine who are doctors. In fact, one of my friends went to med school and then he went on and became an anesthesiologist. And what he went through to get to that point. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Fish Guy says the bar exam should be open book and 100% needed to pass. There's an argument to be made for that. The only problem is open book only helps you when you're in your office. What if you're in a courtroom and you're making an argument? You can't stop and break out the books. So you do need to carry a certain amount of it in your head. You need to. So I can see both, but that's not a bad idea. Vincent Shields is from Canada. Did you ever deal with our laws? No. I from time to time do videos that address stories out of Canada. In fact, I've got one that's coming up tomorrow about a guy in Canada selling bad cars. But I'm not that familiar with the Canadian legal system. I had quite a few students at the University of Detroit who would come over from Windsor and were taking classes in America, although they planned on going back to Canada to practice law. And a lot of the classes were similar. I know that. So Philip Reitzhammer says, Steve, any news on Teresa Brennan? Greetings from Austria. Well, thank you for checking from Austria, first of all. Teresa Brennan is the judge who was on the bench in Brighton and got in trouble for a variety of reasons. I did videos on her. I declared her the worst judge in Michigan, at least. She's certainly the worst judge I was ever in front of. She wound up being charged with crimes They plea bargained it down. She pled guilty to something. She spent some time in jail. She's lost her license to practice law, and she's laying low, and I've not heard a peep in the news about her ever since. I suspect that she's fallen off the face of the earth as far as we're concerned. I doubt we'll ever hear from her again. So, Samuel Williams, the founding father, what would you change about lemon laws if you could? I think there ought to be punitive damages if a manufacturer will not settle a good case. And there are some states that have got them, but most states don't. And that's because of the power that the big three have when it comes to working in legislation. Kotax used to, if I live in Detroit, take classes in Windsor, can I claim I studied abroad? Well, you cross the border, international border. So there was a time when you could literally just jump in your car and zip over to Canada, zip right back, and they would wave you through. And those days are long gone. I mean, I remember kids, the drinking age in Canada was always lower than Detroit, in the U.S. And so a lot of kids were old enough to drink in Canada, but not in the U.S. And so they do little road trips to Canada and back. But yeah, those days are long gone. Hansi Skewer, what's your favorite river for kayaking? I've never kayaked much. I have a canoe. I've had it on a few rivers. I like to have it out on the lakes, so it's more fun. I've had it out on Lake Superior. Diana Goodrich, where would you study Napoleonic law? And is it civil or criminal? I believe it addresses both. But I suspect if you went to any law school in Louisiana, you could pick up the Napoleonic law. And you could probably go to France and study it there too. Jonathan Green, I almost went to law school. Fun fact, don't take the LSAT while sick with ulcerative colitis. That sounds more like a pro tip. A pro tip. Mark Sparks says Judge Judy is the worst. Well, she's not a real judge anymore, though. So, The Fuse Man, I studied abroad once. She got mad at me for staring at her. Oh, boy. Viking 9, do you think qualified immunity should be eliminated for prosecutors as well? I'm thinking specifically the Duke lacrosse case. The Duke lacrosse case was a really weird one, and I've actually seen documentaries on it. I've read lengthy articles about it. And one of the primary problems, I think, and I'm not sure what the solution is for it, but it's that prosecutors are elected. They're elected. So if a prosecutor, who generally speaking, many people don't know who the prosecutors are. They don't even know. If the prosecutor has a high-profile case and can get on the news every single night, look at the good I'm doing, it'll help them in their reelection. And so they turn their job into a campaign. And I seem to recall there are some issues with respect to that person when he's going to be running next and so on. But that is a problem where they'll grandstand in an attempt to help him in an election. So Ed McDonald says, in Louisiana, we don't have counties, we have parishes. Yeah, that's real old school. Jonathan Bailey says, Steve keeps reading past my corny jokes. Sorry. You got to really jump out at me. Boycott Watch just finished writing evaluations for 14 students. For some reason, they're all the same. Designer Dreams, happy Father's Day. New to the channel, have a staycation. Traveling is overrated and overpriced. I know that last year was a big year for travel in Michigan. A lot of people just simply traveled within the state. But I guess this year it's probably going to get even crazier. So, four-door ZL1. What would it take to win that $100 behind you? The $100 behind me has been retired. It's out to pasture. Funky Fudge, do bars need a license to play local radio the way they need one for television? In theory, yes. In reality, probably not. But there was a time when they actually enforced that, whether or not bars were paying they had the rights to play music over the system. So, yeah, John Ellis says the DA in San Francisco doesn't prosecute minor crimes. That annoys a lot of residents. And we've heard stories also out of Texas, for instance, where a prosecutor says, something we don't have time for or whatever. And that's the solution to getting rid of a prosecutor is vote them out if you don't like what they're doing. But my bigger problem is the ones who grandstand just because they know that they have a big case, they'll get them a ton of attention. They hope to turn that into votes. Boycott watch. What if I just ask for the $100 bill, please? I once said in a video, if you want a penny from me, if you try to steal it from me, I'll fight you. But if you ask me for it, I'll give it to you. And I had a guy actually email me and said, Steve, can I have a penny? So I took a penny and I put it in a coin holder. Hang on, I'm trying to do this without knocking any wires. And I put it in a coin holder like this. And I signed it and mailed it to him. And he thanked me by posting a video on YouTube and said, hey, everybody, check it out. Steve Lehto just sent me a penny. Samuel Williams, the founding father, did you ever do research on gas turbine trucks from Ford or Chevy? As a truck driver, I always thought they were fascinating, interesting. A little bit. Chrysler even built one. So in my book on the turbine cars, I did talk about the other turbine experiments. General Motors also built turbine cars like the Firebird series, the original Firebird series. But I didn't get into those as much because the book was primarily about the Chrysler program. So citizen friendly. I don't even know who the prosecutor in my town is or are. Yeah, and like for instance, in Michigan, right? A county will have a prosecutor who runs for election, and that's often somebody because they actually spend lots of money on that. But a lot of cities or townships or municipalities will simply, depends on how the charter is written, they might actually appoint one or somebody hire one. But, it depends. J. Paul, is Muzak transmitted on a channel of a real radio station? I believe Muzak was piped in via satellite, I think, but I don't know what they do now. But I know in the old days, I think it was the case. Citizen friendly, isn't it illegal to send pennies through the mail? Why would that be illegal? Fortis Huckleberry, Marquette, Michigan looks like a neat place for history. It is. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but I mentioned earlier the movie Anatomy of a Murder was shot on location in Marquette. The courthouse is still there, and the jail scenes were also shot there. And very, very cool town. Balu, what is the most fun case you know of? Fun in what way? I'm not sure. Matthias, have to go. Have a sunny day. You too, my friend. I suspect it's a lot later there than it is here. Samuel Williams, the founding father. Do you think FM radio will ever die? I haven't listened to radio in years. Well, it's will it ever die? In many respects, it already has died. FM radio is nothing compared to what it used to be. The glory days were pretty much the early 80s. The end of the glory days, early 80s. It's been downhill ever since. They'll linger for a while, but most radio stations are so horribly managed that it's sad. So, Chris Sanders, how many cars have you owned? I believe I'm in the 20s right now. 20, I'm guessing 25, 30. But it's been a while since I actually counted them all. But I started with a 69 Dodge Charger. Most recent car I bought is my Viper. So those are the bookends. D. Woods' Muzak used to be broadcast on an FM subcarrier frequency. Okay, cool. DJ AM says John Sinclair spent some time in Marquette Prison. Oh, yeah, I forgot about the Marquette Prison. Marquette Prison is outside of Marquette, a little bit to the east. I'm thinking of the jail scenes in the movie were actually shot in the courthouse building. But, you know. Fortis Huckleberry, does Michigan require front plates? No, because that right there is the second plate to my Viper. I've got one in the back and one in the wall. Fred Hill says AM is great for podcast and talk radio. Yeah, and if you can localize it, that's the key. Whether it's AM or FM, if you have an FM station you're playing music, if you make it really, really local, it would work. But Carly Ellison says WLEW, the station that rocks the docks, is streaming right now. I never heard him call it that before. But WLEW is the station in Bad Axe I worked at back in 1982. Thank you for sending that. I greatly appreciate that. But they're apparently trying to reach the people around the edges of the thumb who've got docks on Lake Huron. So Robert Hart, so Michigan sends you 2 plates? No. They send you one. You can pay and buy extras. That's why I said I've got 2. One's there and one's out there. But they will give you one, and that's the one you get for the cost. Nemo with glasses, can't believe 89X went away. What a great station. Yeah. CIMX Windsor. I actually have their bumper sticker over here. I took it down when they changed formats. Plus, I ran out of space over here. But yeah, they were a cool station for so long, and they flipped. I think they went country, which is not something Detroit needed more of. So, Eventual Entropy says lunchtime. I'm out of here. Don't blame you. It's past lunchtime. Oh. Philip Reitzhammer, your thoughts on White Boy Rick? I don't know, because I watched the movie, and I don't know if I believe the movie. And I understand movies aren't necessarily documentaries. I've seen documentaries on him, and I've read a lot about him, and I'm not even sure that one. I don't know enough about it, I think, to weigh in more than that. I'm just saying I didn't buy that the narrative of the movie was correct. Let's put it that way. D Wood, WLEW rocks the docks and shakes the lakes in FM stereo. 90 knots. They do the Willow Run Air Show this year already. Yeah, it was last weekend. And people who went actually got to see the Chrysler Turbine car from the Stalls Museum because they brought it there along with a couple other cars, because there were cars on display and an air show, I believe. Or at least there was something happening at Willow Run. That's all I know. So, Richard R., have you seen Trial 4? No, I have not. I'm not sure what that is. Frederick Heron, remember the Grease Man on DC 101? I know he was famous. I did not hear much of him being in Detroit at the time, but DC 101, of course, is a great station as well. Philip Reitzhammer, thanks for pronouncing my native Austrian name correctly. I'll probably now get it wrong that you said that. Tina Cross, keep telling them the truth, and thanks for educating us. Daniel Kester, hey, Steve, I have a coin. I've been meaning to send you along with something else you will have a laugh about. I appreciate that. As always, send stuff to my P.O. box. The address is at the end of every video. Please don't send stuff to my office, because the office is confusing. I'm in one suite of like 50 in a building, and stuff gets sent and misplaced. If you send it to my P.O. box, I get it all the time. Gary Weisenberger, Martha Jean the Queen, who I believe her last big gig was like middays on WJLB back in the day. And she was one of the titans of Detroit radio. And I'm going to end on this story. I mentioned earlier that Dick Kernan had passed away. He was one of the major players at Specs Howard School of Broadcast Arts. He also wrote a lot about Detroit radio. And at one point in time, he wrote a column saying that Martha Jean did not belong on WJLB anymore, because where she was, They had apparently a morning show, and then she had her little show, and then the rest of the day they played music. And he said, although she's quite popular, she doesn't belong on a music station because she's talking, right? And he said that after that column got published, they eventually did move her someplace else, and I think she may have left the station. And he said he got so many phone calls and messages from her audience, and each and every one of them, he said, was overwhelmingly polite. They would call him up and say, Mr. Kernan, are you the gentleman who wrote that article saying Martha Jean does not belong in WJLB? And say, yes, I am. They say, well, I'm calling to let you know I disagree with you. And he'd say, thank you. And they'd say, okay, goodbye, and hang up. And he goes, I've never had so many people politely tell me I was wrong than Martha Jean's audience. And that says something about her as a person. It does. Absolutely it does. So you can imagine what would happen if somebody wrote a column and said, Howard Stern should not be on the radio, and then he got taken off. Those fans of his would start bombarding the person with just hate. And Martha Jean's, he goes, it was the craziest thing. After a while, he was looking forward to the phone calls. Someone else on line 3 about Martha. Hello, are you the gentleman who wrote the article? So, and Hansi Skewer, yes, a Vin Wiki video is coming up tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. I'm going to check out. I've been on here for over an hour and a half. I'll talk to you later. Have a great Father's Day. Bye-bye.